investigation in Michigan. We'll get Senator Slotkin's reaction to that, what he had to say about that. And it all came down to this moment of just trying to get to pass this bill of his that he wants to pass. And that's really what it was all about. It was an utterly ridiculous thing from start to finish. The networks who refused to cover it did exactly the right thing. And of course, they got their license, their broadcast licenses threatened tonight by Donald Trump for doing exactly the right thing in refusing to air his stream of madness. And so here we are. After Mitch McConnell issued a proof-of-life photograph earlier this week, Donald Trump delivered a proof of dementia video tonight. 25 minutes of it. Election dementia, anyway. At minimum, election dementia. Because Donald Trump's pathological lying and screaming outright insanity on this subject, year in and year out, has become so easily predictable. Careful clinicians studying this patient, Trump, like Georgia Senator John Ossoff, were able to tell us 9 hours before the event what was going to happen tonight.
Here's what's going to happen tonight. The world's most famous sore loser will deliver a primetime presidential sour grapes address to pursue his 6-year-old grievances about the 2020 election, while his war in the Middle East spirals out of control and the cost of living continues to rise for Americans across the country. I expect the president to reheat debunked conspiracy theories about the repeatedly litigated and audited and confirmed 2020 presidential election in Georgia, an election that Donald Trump lost. And let me be very clear about this. If the president declares Georgia's elections illegitimate, or if the president declares Georgia's sitting United States senators illegitimate, he is declaring Georgia voters illegitimate. It's Donald Trump who tried to defraud Georgia voters in that election. Donald Trump who tried to commit election fraud when he called Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and it was caught on tape, and you should play the tape for your viewers today, and badgered and bullied Georgia's top election official to, quote, find him the votes that he needed to win in a state where he had lost.
All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
That is the sound of a crime in progress. Donald Trump was indicted for that phone call in the state of Georgia and in a federal indictment charging him with a conspiracy against the United States of America. Here's another part of that phone call.
You should want to have an accurate election, and you're a Republican.
We believe that we do have an accurate election.
Trump knew. Trump knew it was an accurate election. The Republican Secretary of State in Georgia told him it was an accurate election. The Republican governor of Georgia believed it was an accurate election and said so. Donald Trump's own campaign advisors told him it was an accurate election. And they testified to Jack Smith that they told him that it was an accurate election. They told, his own advisors told Donald Trump that he lost, and he knew it. But Donald Trump believes that his voters are the stupidest voters, not just in America, but in the world. And so Donald Trump has always believed that he can spend the rest of his life lying to his voters about anything. His lies have not been working for him this year. His lies about his war in Iran have not been working. His lies about his tariffs have not been working. His lies about the cost of living and affordability have not been working. And how much he has made it much worse. Voters know that. That is what has sunk him to new lows in the polls. And tonight, Donald Trump tried to go back to his big lie, his favorite lie, to climb out of the dark hole that he is in the polls. And so he defiled the White House once again tonight with a 25-minute demented exhibition of political pornography just to say this.
Congress must pass the Save America Act.
Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut. He's the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman Himes, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I just want to let you go on your reaction to everything he said that is in your jurisdiction in the Intelligence Committee.
Yeah, so Lawrence, because this is so important and because I don't believe it's only about the SAVE Act, let me not put any fine point on this. The President of the United States lied to the American public today. It was a bald-faced, 180-degree, obviously provable lie. Why do I say that? I have reviewed all of the intelligence that the president supposedly declassified, and there is absolutely nothing in that intelligence which that substantiates what he was saying. That Venezuela was doing this, that Russia and China was doing this. The conclusion of the intelligence community under Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, his guy who's at CIA right now, was that there was no meddling. You can look at it. This is a public report. There was no meddling in the meddling meaning interference, no screwing around with vote totals, with voter lists, with machines, etc. Yes, Russia wanted to re-elect Donald Trump. That is in there too. And yes, Iran didn't want Donald Trump to win. And so they put out propaganda. They put out misinformation. But there is nothing in the record to suggest that anything that the president said tonight was true. And the reason I'm animated about this, by the way, for anybody out there who thinks that this is an MS Now, Lawrence O'Donnell Democrat talking, I want you to go to whitehouse.gov and I want you to open up the section on China. I've reviewed every single one of those documents, but you can't do that. And the reason you can't do that, and do it right now, and you will see that every single one of those China documents is almost entirely redacted. It is black line after black line after black. You can't read anything. There's individual words. There's maybe 20 words in 30 documents. By the way, if those documents did anything to prove the president's case, do you think they'd be redacted? No. You would have more than 12 words. Look at the Venezuela report. Please, go to whitehouse.gov right now and look at the Venezuela report, and what you will see is an old report that says, hey, Maduro and Chavez before him, they wanted to influence, here's the key word, Venezuela elections.
Right.
But the president of the United States says, look, Venezuela wanted to influence elections. And so what the president did tonight was lie. And the issue I'm going to take with you, Lawrence, is that yes, maybe it's partly about the SAVE Act, which is a ridiculous solution to a problem that does not exist. Foreigners do not vote in U.S. elections. That's the facts. But what worries me, and the reason you hear some emotion and some passion right now, is because here's the scenario. Election day is going poorly. Jon Ossoff has been clearly reelected. In Michigan, a Democratic senator has. So the House of Representatives is about to change hands to a Democratic majority and maybe even the Senate. And what do you think happens? I know what happens because I was stuck in the chamber on January 6, 2021, when a mob of thousands of people motivated by the president tried to stop the transfer of power. So when Donald Trump sees that those are the results, which are likely, he's going to say, remember in July when I told you that the Venezuelans and the Chinese, that's exactly what happened. So what we're talking about here is not about the SAVE Act, which is an abomination, but it is about setting the stage for Donald Trump to reject the results of the upcoming election. And every American citizen, and I know it's hard to reach some of the president's most closest acolytes, because I work with 220 of them in the United States House of Representatives. That's the Republican conference. But this is a moment for the American people to say, what is going on here? Look at whitehouse.gov, look at the China section, and look at document after document after document, which is nothing but black lines of redaction. That tells the story.
I believe you and the New York Times and other members of Congress are going to completely dismantle, as you're doing right now, and I want to encourage you to keep doing it, these documents that he's talking about. But take me to this other point. Take me to that election. Now we're after the election. In the scenario you just came up with, we're counting votes in Georgia, and you said Donald Trump will reject the election. And do what?
Here's what happens. Senator Ossoff, who you just had on tape there, has clearly won.
Yeah.
We know how the president feels about Georgia. You ran the clip. When he lost Georgia, did he concede? No. He called up Brad Raffensperger, Republican Secretary of State, find me 11,000 votes. Clearly corrupt. No one can look at that and say that's anything other than criminal, but also corrupt. Right. So when Jon Ossoff wins, this is just one example. And remember, there's a Senate race in Michigan. There's a Senate race in North Carolina. Donald Trump looks at that and he says, my people in Venezuela, because remember, Donald Trump and Marco Rubio are running Venezuela, have found secret intelligence that shows that in Caracas, Maduro's cousin manipulated voting machines in Georgia. This is how this happens. This is how American democracy goes away. Now, a lot of people know me. I've been in this position for some period of time. I'm not an alarmist. In fact, I get a lot of guff for being a little overly optimistic and overly calm. But understand what happened tonight. The president was setting the context. He was setting the basis for him to turn around at midnight on Election Day and say, I warned you. I warned you back in July that the Chinese were doing XYZ and the Venezuelans were doing XYZ and all this terrible stuff. It happened tonight. I am deploying federal officers from the Department of Homeland Security to 7 states. They will be seizing ballot boxes in those states because we know that lots of undocumented aliens voted in those things. So we are seizing ballot boxes. Now, Lawrence O'Donnell, what happens when all of a sudden we've lost the chain of custody of 70 ballot boxes in critical? That is the moment in which American democracy dies. Make no mistake, what happened tonight.
What's the defense against that?
The defense against that is what I'm trying to do tonight, which is that the American people need to understand, as much as you may love Donald Trump, as much as you may hate the Democrats, there is something that we care about more than our party affiliation, and that is the preservation of our democracy. And part of the energy you're hearing from me tonight is the fact that I was one of the last people out of the chamber of the House of Representatives on January 6, 2021. I saw our democracy come this close to ending. And the energy you're hearing from me tonight is that I see the path. And this is the moment for every American to go to whitehouse.gov, as the president asked you to do, to look at the China section, to read the report. By the way, John Radcliffe, old friend of mine, runs the CIA right now, right? Old friend of mine, current friend of mine. Please read his statement. Read his statement on Twitter. It says, we provided documents. Every American should look at those documents. Nowhere in John Radcliffe, the president's guy running the CIA, in his statement does it say, and I agree with everything the president said tonight. You know why it doesn't say that? Because he doesn't.
Jim Himes, invaluable to have you here as our leadoff guest covering this tonight. And please come back. There's going to be more on this over the coming days and as we get to November, because your warning is the most important thing that can be said about what was going on tonight. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. When we come back, Michigan Senator Elissa Slotkin will join us.